Seth Parker was 15 years old, and if you asked him what he wanted to do with his life, he would shrug, smile a little, and say, "I don't know. I'll figure it out later." And he meant it. He wasn't lazy. He wasn't rebellious. He just didn't think life required much thought yet. His days were simple. After school, he played video games with his friends online. On weekends, he played basketball at the park or watched football with his dad. Every Sunday morning and Wednesday night, he went to church with his parents. It was a good life, a comfortable life, and he didn't see any reason to change it. But it was also a cycle. The same thing every week. School, games, sports, church, repeat. Seth didn't hate it. He just didn't think about it. He didn't think about anything too deeply. He figured life would work out somehow. Adults always said that God had a plan, so Seth assumed that meant he didn't need one. But everything changed the night his junior Bible class studied Philippians 4:13. Wednesday nights were usually predictable. The junior class met in a small room at the end of the hall by the Youth Fellowship Hall. The walls were covered with posters from the book Core Truths, the curriculum they used every week. Seth liked the class well enough. He memorized verses, listened to stories, and sometimes even answered questions. But he never took anything too seriously. That evening, the lesson was on determination. Seth didn't think much of it. He figured it would be another talk about trying hard, or not giving up. But when Mr. Pope, his Bible class instructor, began to speak, something felt different. Mr. Pope opened his Bible and read the verse out loud. "I can do all things through Christ which strengtheneth me." Philippians 4:13. Seth mouthed the words along with him. He had heard that verse 100 times. It was on posters, T-shirts, and even his sister's running shoes. He thought he already knew what it meant. Mr. Pope continued, "This may be the most important lesson that one of you in this class will ever hear. It has the potential to change your life in such a way that you could not believe." A companion verse of Philippians 4 verse 13 is Galatians 2:20. I would suggest that you memorize both of these verses and make them a constant companion in your life. But Mr. Pope didn't explain it the way Seth expected. Most people, Mr. Pope said, think this verse means Christ gives you a sudden burst of strength whenever you need it, like a spiritual energy drink. But that's not what Paul meant. Seth sat up a little straighter. Mr. Pope continued his teaching, challenging the class's expectations of Philippians 4:13. He clarified that Paul was not referring to a temporary burst of energy or a sudden supercharge from Jesus. Instead, Mr. Pope emphasized that the verse is about character, the foundational strength in a person's life that leads to wise decisions and genuine success. He explained that while talent can take someone a certain distance, it is impossible to go far without strong character. According to Mr. Pope, Christ strengthens people by shaping their character, molding them from the inside out. This transformation happens as Christ forms his character within individuals, guiding their actions and choices. Mr. Pope stressed that these character traits are built through Christ's Word, and it is this internal development that enables a person to accomplish all the things that God has set before them. True determination, he concluded, does not come from fleeting feelings or bursts of energy, but from the lasting character that Christ develops in each person. Seth blinked. Character? He had never connected Philippians 4:13 with character. Mr. Pope walked slowly across the room. You don't become strong because you try harder. You become strong because Christ changes you. Your habits, your choices, your discipline, your purpose. Determination isn't a feeling, it's a decision. It's a lifestyle. It's Christ in you. Seth felt something stir inside him, something he had never felt before in class. A thought, a question, a realization. If Christ gives strength through character, then what kind of character do I have? Mr. Pope kept teaching, explaining how Christ-like qualities, humility, patience, self-control, prayerfulness, honesty, diligence, build the kind of strength that helps a person accomplish anything God calls them to do. Seth listened harder than he had ever listened before. For the first time in his life, he wondered if maybe, just maybe, he needed to start thinking about his future. Maybe life wasn't something that just happened. Maybe he needed a plan. And that thought scared him, but it also excited him. That night, Seth lay awake in bed long after the lights were off. He stared at the ceiling, thinking about what Mr. Pope had said. The next 5 years of my life, 15 to 20. Those are the years when people make the biggest decisions. College, career, friends, faith, direction. What am I doing with those years? He didn't have an answer. He had never thought about the future. He had never thought about goals. He had never thought about who he wanted to become. But now he couldn't stop thinking about it. He remembered something Mr. Pope said near the end of class. Determination is built one choice at a time, one habit at a time, one day at a time, just like everything else in life. That sentence stuck in Seth's mind, because suddenly he began to see examples of that truth everywhere. The next afternoon, Seth walked into the garage and found his older brother, Juan, lifting weights. Juan was 21 and a champion weightlifter in their county. He had trophies lined up on a shelf and medals hanging from hooks on the wall. Seth watched him for a moment. Juan's muscles strained as he lifted the barbell over his head. Sweat dripped down his face. His arms trembled, but he didn't quit. When he finally set the weight down, he noticed Seth watching. "You okay, little bro?" Juan asked, wiping his forehead. "Yeah," Seth said, "just thinking." "That's dangerous," Juan teased. Seth smiled weakly. "How did you get so strong?" Juan shrugged. "I started when I was your age. Small weights at first, then heavier. I made a plan. I stuck to it. Every day, even when I didn't feel like it." Seth swallowed. "So, you didn't just wake up one day and become a champion?" Juan laughed. "No way. Strength doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from discipline, from habits, from determination." Seth felt a chill run through him. That was exactly what Mr. Pope had said. A week later, Seth's family drove out to see the new house they were building. The frame was up, and the bricklayers were working on the outer walls. Seth stood and watched one man in particular. He was building a huge wall, taller than Seth, one brick at a time. He dipped his trowel into the mortar, spread it carefully, placed a brick, tapped it into place, checked it with a level, and moved on to the next one. Brick after brick, row after row, hour after hour. Seth stared in amazement. How could something so big come from something so small? His dad walked up beside him. "Impressive, isn't it?" "Yeah," Seth said quietly. "It's slow." His dad chuckled. "Slow, but steady. That's how strong things are built." Seth nodded slowly. "One brick at a time, one habit at a time, one choice at a time. That's how character is built, too." A few days later, Seth's sister, Emily, came home from school wearing her marathon medal. She had won the Rockford City Marathon the previous weekend, and everyone was still talking about it. Seth watched her as she stretched in the living room. "Emily," he said, "how did you get so fast?" She smiled. "Lots of practice." "But how did you start?" Emily sat down beside him. "I started with 1 mile. It was hard. I hated it. But I ran it every morning. Then I ran 2 miles, then 4, then 10. I didn't get fast overnight. I got fast because I didn't quit." Seth felt something tighten in his chest. Everyone around him, his brother, his sister, even the bricklayer, had something in common. They had a plan. They had discipline. They had determination. And he didn't. he felt something shift inside him. A spark, a stirring, a new kind of determination. He thought, everything great, everything strong, everything successful comes from commitment. That night, Seth sat at his desk with his Bible open. He turned to Philippians 4:13 and read it slowly. I can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth me. He whispered the words out loud. Then he remembered Mr. Pope's explanation. Christ strengthens you by forming his character in you. Seth closed his eyes. Lord, he prayed softly, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with my life, but I want to start caring. I want to start planning. I want to start becoming the person you want me to be. Please help me. When he opened his eyes, he felt different, not older, but more awake. He grabbed a notebook and wrote at the top, My Life Plan. He didn't know exactly what he wanted yet, but he knew he needed direction. So he wrote 3 simple goals. Grow in Christ-like character. Choose habits that build my future. Make decisions that move me toward God's purpose. Then he wrote, 5-year plan. He didn't fill it in yet, but he would. Soon. For the first time in his life, he felt excited about the future. Over the next few weeks, Seth began making small changes. He set a time each morning to read his Bible and pray. He limited his video game time. He started helping his dad with chores without being asked. He practiced self-control when he felt angry or impatient. He tried to be honest, kind, and respectful, even when it was hard. He wasn't perfect. He messed up sometimes, but he kept going, because now he understood something he had never understood before. Determination is built 1 brick at a time, 1 mile at a time, 1 practice session at a time, 1 choice at a time, and Christ was forming his character in him. Months passed, and Seth's life began to look different. He still played sports. He still enjoyed video games. He still went to church, but now he lived with purpose. He started thinking about careers, maybe teaching, maybe ministry, maybe something with computers. He didn't know yet, but he was exploring. He was planning. He was growing. His parents noticed. His friends noticed. Even Mr. Pope noticed. One Wednesday night, after class, Mr. Pope pulled him aside. You've changed, Mr. Pope said with a smile. You're thinking deeper. You're acting older. What happened? Seth smiled. Philippians 4:13 happened. But the real meaning, the character meaning. Mr. Pope nodded. Christ in you? Yeah, Seth said. Christ in me. One evening, Seth sat outside watching the sunset. He thought about his brother lifting weights, his sister running miles, the bricklayer building the wall, and his mother practicing piano. He realized something powerful. Success isn't magic. Strength isn't instant. Determination isn't a feeling. It's a lifestyle, a choice, a plan, a character shaped by Christ. He whispered the verse again. I can do all things through Christ which strengtheneth me. And for the first time in his life, he truly believed it. Not because Christ would give him a sudden burst of power, but because Christ was building his character in him, brick by brick, mile by mile, day by day. And Seth knew he was ready for life. He was ready for purpose. He was ready for the future, because Christ was in him, and Christ was enough. Now, sitting in his dorm room at Pensacola Christian College, 20-year-old Seth often found himself thinking back to that Wednesday night when Mr. Pope first opened Philippians 4:13 in a way he had never heard before. It felt like a lifetime ago, yet the memory was still warm and sharp, like the moment a light had turned on inside him. He remembered the other kids in that junior Bible class, some who had found their footing, but many still drifting without direction, carried by whatever wind blew their way. But Seth had chosen a different path. He had made a plan, A real plan. 5 years mapped out with purpose, followed by yearly goals that shaped his habits, his friendships, his reading, his classes, and even the way he spent his free time. Every choice had been weighed by one question: will this add to my goal or take away from it? And now, as he stepped confidently into his third year of college, he knew that God had used that simple lesson on determination to set the course of his entire life. With gratitude and quiet conviction, he whispered the words that had become the anchor of his journey. I am crucified with Christ. Nevertheless, I live. Yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. Galatians 2:20.